Hello and welcome back. And I just thought I'd make this video today because I think I've upset Wendy Brooks on Facebook. I always read her posts on Facebook because once you've worked out whether it's actually Wendy talking about herself or whether it's Wendy talking about things with her LTC hat on, sometimes they're quite interesting to read, often sadly totally inaccurate, but I always try and keep going, and sometimes we'll have a few words back and forth. Being honest, most often it's good-natured, no problem at all, because on the channel here all I'm doing is reporting what I as a member of the public see. I mean, she did point out that I'm not aware of all the things that go on behind the scenes at Lowestoft Town Council, and I'm not remotely. I wish sometimes I could find some of those things out, because I bet they're a bit more entertaining than the ones the public get to watch. She made a little comment yesterday about what had I done for a certain thing. I sort of said, well, the thing we were talking about was the library thing. So I said, well, apart from going down the road, talking to the library staff, finding out what they really thought about this sort of getting rid of Suffolk libraries and converting them all to Suffolk County Council libraries. I did that. I made a few videos, tried to get people interested. I've had quite a lot of rather nice messages thanking me for the exposure that I'd given it. I've annoyed a few people on Suffolk County Council, I think, because despite the fact they got quite a lot of complaints from everywhere, I think quite a few people seem to mention my videos, and a video is always more powerful than an email. It always is. That's just how it works. People don't like seeing the videos sometimes. They're hard to watch. But, she countered with the rather sort of strange message this morning. She says, Paul Johnson, you're wrong, because the timing of the library announcement and the deadline for comments, LTC had no time to add it to full council. Councillors messaged the acting town clerk, who had delegated authority to respond to Suffolk County Council on our behalf. Not one councillor supported SCC taking over from Suffolk Libraries, and we did not, like you, annoy the library staff. If have enough to deal with, without you trying to make another video that, like the others, will be inaccurate. Sorry, Wendy, I don't really agree there. In actual fact, the lady that I saw in the library here was delightful. She had no qualms telling me that I was spot on. It was lovely working for Suffolk Libraries, and all of her colleagues and her friends thought the same thing. I don't think I annoyed her for one moment. I was calm, considerate and supportive. Sadly, LTC's sort of timescale, clearly, allotments and things are far more important than libraries. So we have to go through the cycle to get to full council. But no, we don't. There are actually ways in which things can be done quickly when they need to be. And she's absolutely right. And delegated powers mean that the councillors can give the job to the acting town clerk to sort out. But she was asked to write a letter. That's what she did. She wasn't asked to do anything other than write a letter. She did exactly as she was asked by the councillors. Now, there were no extraordinary meetings. Nobody was sort of getting committees up and running to sort of plan a campaign. The idea that nobody knew was sort of rather ridiculous, really, because the public knew about the same time, I think, as LTC knew. So, really, they could have made a lot more fuss about that. I mean, let's be honest, this fireworks lark that we've been talking about, there's been more discussion on fireworks than there ever was on the libraries, ever. I mean, if you watch the various meetings, the fireworks come up time and time again. And the libraries, well, it's just a really bad thing and we mustn't let this happen, so let's write a letter of protest. And that was the actual contribution. It's not very good, really. And I think that's what's riled a lot of people. It certainly annoyed me because I didn't know much about libraries. I know quite a lot now. So anyway, I was looking for some other information to see if I could go back on this and find out how it worked. And you'll have to just trust me on this one. It's not by searching, because being honest, I do not have the time to go back through the archives and search for examples of Wendy doing what she does best. I mean, we all know what that is. So anyway, I thought you might like to see some of this. Now, these date back to before I discovered that Lowestoft Town Council was a war zone. So forgive me for fishing this up, but we're talking about a meeting where one of the things on the agenda was mental health issues. And the mental health issue meeting kicked off badly. Watch this.
That's just a note. 6.2 to appoint deputy chair of the personnel committee. Has anybody professed any interest from those that are not here, or anybody? No one's asked me anything.
I don't mind being deputy chair.
Seconder for Wendy.
Unbelievable, you lot.
Unbelievable? No, I would have thought it's quite predictable. Yep. Not one person was willing to second Wendy to be vice chair. Mainly because she often sort of puts herself forward for things that she knows very little about. And I don't think the others have got much confidence in her. Incidentally, in this old meeting, there's some sort of stalwarts. I did notice Jen Jones is sitting at the far end of the table, and I didn't recognise her because this is an old video. And she doesn't have bright red hair. So that's a fairly new thing. Well, keep it up, Jen. We love the colours. But clearly, nobody wanted to endorse Wendy.
I just think it's quite incredible, but it'll come up in 8.
I don't think it will.
It will. It will, Alan, believe me.
And I'll give my response in 8 as well.
It's going to come up in 8. That's agenda item 8, something to be discussed shortly. But clearly the chair didn't think that was really going to happen. Wendy wasn't happy.
Can we just record that?
Yes, you can.
Councillor
You
Brooks
can. Provocation. Extreme provocation.
I feel provoked as well, Wendy.
Is that just something that's been said in this meeting, or really?
Yes, because Councillor Brooks didn't get a seconder to be deputy chair.
Right. Okay. Well, obviously we can't have inappropriate language in the meeting.
No, I know. I apologise.
That we can just admit there was an inappropriate word said and an apology was given.
Forgot to say, that's Shona Bendix, the missing, not seen for a year town clerk. Still on the roll as far as I can see. She's still on the town council website, but we haven't seen her because Sarah Foote has been doing a marvellous job as acting town clerk ever since then. So it was quite interesting to see her doing her stuff there. But menacing that as an inappropriate word was said and was apologised. I really wish I could read lips.
But also I was provoked because Councillor Green said I wouldn't be able to raise my issues in number 8. And I feel my issues come very much within Councillor 8. So I had been targeted by various councillors over the last few weeks.
I think other
And
councillors feel targeted by you, Wendy, quite frankly.
Come on, people.
So,
We can know that councillors.
me included.
Councillors.
This is why I didn't support you for deputy chair.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Can we keep?
A lot goes on behind the scenes, Wendy.
Yes, we know that,
Members of the
don't we?
public don't see. Yes,
We know that indeed.
Your emails, your messages.
If I don't, I shall call on standing orders too. If this would just
Please do. It's about time.
so let's behave, please, people. 7.
So we have no deputy chair.
7
No,
to consider the
no.
redundancy policy, including redundancy arrangements in terms of conditions of employment, and we'll put the deputy chair on the next meeting.
I'm not sure about you, but she says her excuse is she was provoked. Basically, she didn't get voted in, and that's provocation. No, it's a vote reflecting what they think your competence is. It was pretty obvious to me. She just didn't like it. On to the dreaded item 8, the one that the danger lights were flashing for a little while earlier.
Number 9 to review.
Excuse me,
sorry,
number 8.
To consider the implementation of the town council's wellbeing policies. Wendy.
We have a wellbeing policy. and I've read it. I've read it several times. And I think there's things that maybe councillors need to be aware of, which is the process to go through when they feel that they need some assistance because of stress being caused at the town council. I mean, I found out how to do it, but it wasn't immediately obvious. But I would like to highlight that the councillors themselves offer very little. The mayor, I've contacted the mayor and the chair of personnel about how I was feeling and what I was going through, and neither of them got back to me.
So this item is about councillor wellbeing. And one of the first things that Wendy says is that when she has issues, she wants someone to talk to. And who should she contact? And she's contacted a couple of people who have ignored her. I wonder why.
Neither of them. So basically, the wellbeing policy, I think councillors need to know that it's to contact the clerk, and that's the process to go through, and not to go via the mayor or the chair of personnel, because it seems that it's not within their brief or remit if they don't answer an email, not even to say, I've got it.
Yeah, well, I've also read the wellbeing policy, and I've also raised a request for support under the wellbeing policy. So, and I've also given my observations on acknowledgement and handling, which I won't repeat here. But there are two things that depending on the nature of the request for help, the council will be limited on what it can do, because it has absolutely no jurisdiction to consider or investigate or adjudicate on any matter that's captured by the Code of Conduct.
This is one of those typical examples, a meeting designed to improve something, in this case, councillors' wellbeing, is being hijacked because Wendy's using it to make the point. Because basically, she didn't get her own way and she thinks that's unfair. But I think in a democracy, if somebody says they want to do something, they need the support of others. And clearly, so many times, she has no support whatsoever. And I've been on a few committees where actually not supporting people is quite difficult. You feel a little bit like you ought to, you know, camaraderie. But everybody seems just totally fed up with it. I mean, this is a very old meeting, 2023. But she's already sworn once in the meeting, and now she's sort of trying to sort of make a case for mental health. Well, it's clear that all this bickering and arguing is exactly the wrong thing if you want to actually increase the standards of councillors' mental health. It's not the first time she's done this, of course. I mean, I wasn't privy to sort of some of the earlier stuff because I didn't know about it. But I do remember this incident.
Take a dim view of it. If you create a hostile environment for the ward councillor, all that member did was said it's been reported to Faceback Leave It. What I am saying is this is a personally motivated item. The basic point about declaration of interest is valid. Wendy also has interests. Okay, so look at another organisation that's how often does Wendy declare that she used to be a tenant of a certain organisation and was in litigation?
Allowed him to go on and on criticising me and naming me. I didn't.
You participated. You did know me.
Councillors, can we both calm down? And
But what I'm saying, Chair,
councillors, can we just?
You can't control it.
No,
that's the thing. Nobody can control him.
Excuse me.
He just shouts and screams.
Excuse me, Councillor Brooks.
Well, you can't control it.
Thank you. It's not about control.
It is.
You have put forward various actions.
And I have been.
Thank you,
I
Councillor
have been named and targeted and abused and lied about.
no, you haven't been lying.
I have.
Councillor Brooks, can you just wait? Thank you. Right. Just now, you made various statements.
Observations.
I would call them statements. You don't swear at me. Right, well, that's a point of order. I'm asking you to leave the meeting.
I'm going.
Because it's totally unacceptable.
It's totally unacceptable.
Yes, it is.
What
But
is
you
totally
need to be
unacceptable is you
swearing.
allowing Councillor Pierce to
Thank you.
yell and scream at me.
No, he's not. He is replying
No,
to
he
your
wasn't.
statement. Thank you. If you leave, that's up to you.
I'm going.
Thank you. Right.
What do you reckon to that then? It's a meeting about mental health, and I'm ashamed to say I actually missed this the first time I watched it. Look at the top of the picture in the next clip, and you'll see Councillor Jen Jones, the lady with black hair at this particular moment in her life. It gets pink and red later, which is great. I promise I'm not taking the mickey here. But watch carefully, because Councillor Jones, who's normally pretty level-headed, I think, gets up and leaves. I didn't think anything of it. I thought she'd just go to the loo or something. But the town clerk noticed something. What's this bit?
Like, well, we can all talk to whoever we like. That is open to all of us all of the time. There is not, if you have a good relationship with the mayor or the chairperson now, of course you can speak to them. Nobody's saying you can't. If you want to have a casual chat with them or you want some support,
Wendy.
you can, excuse me, I have not finished.
You're also misrepresenting my proposal.
Hang on, Andy.
Can I finish?
Then don't put words in my mouth. Speak for yourself, not for me.
You clearly said if people, they could raise their issues with the mayor or the chairperson, and that is what I was disagreeing with. Is that clear?
No. What I said is the person should be able to raise the request with who they feel comfortable with. Now, that might be the clerk. I raised mine with the clerk and I copied the mayor and sheriff personnel in for courtesy, but I raised it with the clerk. But what if, and that isn't the case with me, but what if somewhere down the line, change the personalities, what if the clerk was the cause of distress? Who would they go to then? So, there needs to be an option. And that's why I said it should be who the person feels comfortable and appropriate to. And I am not saying the mayor or chair of personnel should handle the request. I'm talking about it as a referral point. So if something like mediation or counselling was needed, of course the mayor and chair of personnel wouldn't carry that out, but they might well be the referral point for sorting it.
No. Sorry to come in. There's a bit of an uncomfortable tone in here and someone's left the room. Yeah, I think I was going to say there's a bit of a difference between if you want to have a discussion like Jen was saying that she's a mental health first aider and presumably might be happy if someone to talk to an individual.
That's a bit worrying, isn't it? The town clerk noticed that someone had gone out of the room clearly upset because of the tone of the meeting, because it's the temperature in the room. You know, it's just ironic because in this meeting they're supposed to be talking about making councillors feel better, and their constant bickering and snipey comments, all it did was got someone a bit upset. And I'm not particularly observant, but when I watched it back, yeah, I understood. That's pretty rotten, really, isn't it? But they just talk and talk and talk and talk. That lady, the town clerk, had her hand up in the air for ages when she noticed what was going on, and all they did was blathered on. That's the symptom. The trouble is, with all these things, people go on the committees for totally the wrong reasons. They don't go on them because they're an expert. I mean, there are actually, in that room, experts on all sorts of things. And if you look at the whole council, it's really split up. I always find the ironic bit is that the people who are the genuine experts are often unable to be on certain committees and do any good because of the conflicts of interest that they've got. You know, the dispensation stuff that they talk about at the beginning. So, what's a good example? The new councillor, the young chap who used to work at the Marina Theatre, I don't think he does now, but because he worked at the Marina Theatre, he wasn't allowed to have any real input on marina activities. Now, he would have been the classic person who knew when they were talking about rubbish. Because, you know, if you're an expert in your own arena, you know when you're being told rubbish. But in the marina sort of projects, very often they're just fudged. There's so much that a skilled person can put in some of the other committees. I mean, one of the other guys, Christian, I think he would be an expert at all things travel and transport. He never gets asked any questions on those sort of things. It's really weird. So it seems to me very strange that we have committees made up of people who seem to be pretty much on crusades. And I noticed lately that we had a little spate a while back where Andy Pearce, who was on lots of the committees, suddenly wasn't. He was always on quite a few committees, and then he disappeared. And one of the things with Andy, of course, is that he's probably the most qualified council person in terms of how they work, what the rules are. Unfortunately, he's got a bit of a hot temper, and he doesn't take fools sort of too well, which does seem to set him in constant disagreement with Wendy. The meetings at which he wasn't present just recently went really smoothly, but nobody asked the hard questions because nobody had read all the documentation. You know, the office send the documentation out, a small percentage of the councillors read it. Many councillors come into the meetings and actually proudly declare, well, I haven't had time to read the briefing papers, but I'm against it, or for it, or whatever. It's a bit of a mockery, really, isn't it? Anyway, that's probably enough for today. I just thought, when I accidentally came across this particular video, it just leapt out and said, you know, how on earth can a meeting that was supposed to be designed to talk about making life for councillors easier, happier, and sort of reduce their stress levels, got to the stage where one poor devil had to get up and leave. You've got to remember that people don't all deal with conflict the same way. And if you look at our councillors, it's quite a lot of them. And not all of them speak. A few of them will occasionally give a little statement or nod. Some of them, if you notice very carefully, because I've studied lots of these, lots of them will actually nod their head a lot and support things, but they're not brave enough to take on Laurel and Hardy. In actual fact, Wendy and Andy are often quite okay on their own. So if one of them is missing, meetings seem to go quite well. The two of them together, constant conflict. And I have to say that despite Andy getting cross a lot, he is the person they miss on these committees. Because very often the officers ask Andy, he knows the rules, he knows the regulations, he's read the acts they're talking about, he knows the planning rules properly, all that sort of stuff. And quite a few of the others have no idea, and quite a lot of them don't seem to learn either. So I just thought it important to sort of make this video just to point out that they can't run themselves very well. We've got the AGM coming up. Not there yet, but we're getting closer. I just think it would be great if, and I don't suppose this is actually doable because I don't think it's in sort of the rules, but, you know, when people want to be on a committee, why are they never asked what their experience, benefits and knowledge are on the areas in which the committee sort of looks at? If you want to be on the allotments committee, perhaps a requisite should be that you've got an allotment, had an allotment. If it's about parks or sport, should you be sporty or like walking in parks? There doesn't seem to be anything about that in the rules. If it's about climate emergency, which I think they just do a terrible job, because it's a bit like the loony green party that we see sometimes on TV and where they're taking the mickey out of them. Best intentions, lovely people, best intentions, but they never do any proper research. They just skim a few details, take it as fact and run with it. So the climate thing's a bit of a joke. Most of the other ones are okay. But the one about sort of events and things like that. The only person who really knows much in those meetings is Christopher, one of the officials. And he sort of has to do all the stuff that really should be done by the councillors, I think. They have no idea about the licensing. They have no idea about rules and regulations. They just sort of bumble through it. So it would be lovely if I could sort of put a proposal together, because I could say, look, I think that committee member access should be by ability. How good is someone? How useful are they? I've been doing a bit of digging on the council, and there's some extremely well-educated people. People who've got like skills that they've sort of gained over a long period of time. Quite a lot from the teaching background. So, you know, they're really useful people, but they're never allowed to make their point, or sometimes they just don't feel that they can. My reading is that Sonia, the old mayor, was extremely glad when her term of office ran out. I suspect she handed the mayoral chain on to the current mayor with sort of relief. And I get the opinion that our current mayor is finding dealing with complete plonkers really difficult, you know, because controlling a meeting shouldn't have to be like shouting and yelling and stuff like that. It's all about respect, really, isn't it? And it's quite clear that respect within the council is sort of optional. I mean, how many times do people use the phrase thank you? A couple of councillors use thank you all the time, and they don't mean thank you at all. They mean sort of up yours, really. So I think we really have to sort of do something about this. Trouble is, local government is always like this. Lots of fuss, lots of rules, no sanctions whatsoever. Anyway, I won't bore you anymore, but I just thought you might like to see some of the background of how the councillors look after themselves. Or not. See you on the next one. Take care.